Welcome back to Dave Knows Wrestling. Now normally...
Knock knock!
Okay, I'll bite. Who's there?
Funny wrestler.
Alright, funny wrestler who?
Exactly! Who cares about funny wrestlers?
Well, maybe the title cards have a point. Because while a sense of humor tends to be a good thing in the real world, there are those who will argue that it's quite a detriment in the world of professional wrestling. Now, this argument really is nothing new, but it is the topic of this episode. Because today, Dave knows the argument over comedy in wrestling. Now to be clear, when I'm talking about comedy in wrestling, I'm talking about specific comedy acts, skits, and gimmicks. I am not talking about wrestlers like The Rock or Chris Jericho who can get a laugh out of you while they're cutting a funny promo, talking a lot of smack. Furthermore, I'm also going to be talking about whether comedy acts have any place in professional wrestling altogether, and if they do more harm than good to a wrestler's career in the long run. But to start, let's discuss what I think is the major root of this argument. Because I say that this, just like many things in the industry, all comes down to the great debate over kayfabe. There are old school types who believe that things were better when wrestling was treated like it was real, even if everybody knew otherwise. They prefer to see wrestling treated like a legitimate sport, a contest of combat between two competitors who are fiercely fighting in order to be victorious. Others, on the other hand, say, why so serious? Because times are different now, and the cat is out of the bag. People know that wrestling is fake, so why not at least have some fun with it? They view a lack of protecting the business as freeing wrestling to be whatever it wants to be, even if what it wants to be is just silly. So who's right? Well, let's take a closer look at both arguments. Let's start with the pro comedy side. And I think the biggest example of comedy in wrestling in the modern era is Chikara. Here's a promotion that has featured gimmicks like the Colony, Los Ice Creams, and the Osirian Portal, not to mention plenty of others. And these wrestlers will do things like throwing themselves down on an invisible pantomime hand grenade in order to protect their teammates, tie their opponents' boots together, or even hypnotize their opponents into breakdancing. And all that is just the tip of the iceberg. Acts like these give Chikara several advantages. For one, this creates a very kid-friendly environment. The big over-the-top silliness is just something that's enjoyable for everyone, even really small children. But also, and more importantly, it separates itself from the WWE. With all the different promotions out there, you need to separate yourself from the herd. Why try and copy the WWE when you don't have the production value, the television exposure, nor the money to compete with them on their terms? Instead, just be different, be weird, and do things that the WWE could never do. Although, that is exactly the problem the way some people see it. Allow me to talk about the marquee test. Now, I heard about this from Jim Cornette. The idea here is to say two names as they would appear on the marquee for the main event of WrestleMania. For example, the WrestleMania main event featuring The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Now that sounds right now, doesn't it? But if we swap out a name, well, listen to this. The WrestleMania main event featuring The Rock versus Cheeseburger for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Now, even I gotta admit, that does sound really odd. So just think of this as a gimmick litmus test, if you will. Because the thinking here is that while there is nothing wrong with a wrestler who never works for the WWE, and it's perfectly fine if you never main event a WrestleMania or even win a WWE title, the idea is that you should still be trying to do so. It should be what every wrestler is striving for. Regardless of what actually happens in your career, if you join the wrestling business, there are those who believe that your end goal should be to reach the pinnacle of that business. Reach the highest summit, get the highest prize, on the biggest stage for the biggest company. The belief is that you're doing no favors for yourself by setting a ceiling any lower than the absolute top. And when you hear your gimmick name and picture your gimmick in that WrestleMania main event match, and it becomes very clear that that'll never happen, then you might want to rethink things and accept the idea that you might be doing something wrong. Which might be the reason why, according to some, that El Generico traded in his silly gimmick to become Sami Zayn. Now furthermore, on the serious side of things, there are many fans out there who just hate wrestling being treated like, well, a joke. They want to see the industry that they love being treated with respect, honor, and prestige, which is pretty hard to do when you have a grown man fighting a blow-up doll or a wrestler using his penis to overpower his opponent. Old school wrestling types can feel that matches like these are the reason why people don't take wrestling seriously anymore. However, there is still something left to be said when we discuss the old school, because comedy wrestling isn't just some new indie phenomenon. Let's go back to the Blue World Order in ECW, an obvious parody of the New World Order. And also, let's go back to Mae Young giving birth to a hand, or better yet, let's go all the way back to the original Gorgeous George. Sure, people love to hate him, but much of his character was just a goof, spraying everything down with perfume or running away and crying. He was a living cartoon character, and that was the exact kind of character that formed the backbone of professional wrestling as we know it today. In the end, is wrestling allowed to be funny? Of course it is, but it all depends on context. There are certain things that would fly in certain promotions that would never go over in others, and yet there are also some acts that never should have happened in any company ever, like Eugene or Judy Bagwell on a pole. But just remember, comedy, like everything else, is subjective. What's funny to someone may not be so funny to someone else. And the same goes for where comedy belongs in wrestling. So, what do you think? Where's the line between acceptable funny and just plain stupid when it comes to professional wrestling? Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to support me over on Patreon, because if we make our monthly goal, then you get to watch Albert Albanese do a live stream completely gagged up. And if we make our second goal, he'll have to do it for the entire month. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, Dave knows.